Now, following the devastating floods in KwaZulu-Natal, many towns and residents were cut off from their usual activities and often isolated due to the damaged roads and destroyed infrastructure. In Durban's community of Shallcross, residents rolled up their sleeves and repaired a flood-damaged bridge with donated funds and machinery. And about an hour's drive further north of the community of Tongaat stepped forward to undertake repair work on a road damaged by the floods. Joining us now to share their inspiration to mobilize communities for their own well-being, a Shallcross resident and community leader Marcus Richards, and Tongaat resident and member of the community emergency response team, Nazir Sadack. Gentlemen, good evening. Thank you for your time and for joining us tonight here on In Focus. Nazir, let's start with you. I know your work has also been interrupted by the rains this past weekend, but take us through the variety of steps that you are going through and maybe that you went through in as far as what you require as far as your intervention without, of course, the help of the authorities.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. Yeah, I think there's a lot that needs to take place, and we're just taking one step at a time. So for now, we're basically just stabilizing that road of ours that's washed away. And for the viewers out there that don't know the area, the Tongaat Beach area comprises of the Synagogue Limmercy Seatype area. And currently we're sitting with no access, or almost no access, should I say, to the outside world because the Limmercy Bridge is washed away. The North Bridge, which is the M4 Tongaat River Bridge, has been damaged. And now we face that the only road that we have leaving is the Jinazana Road, which has also been damaged, and we're literally sitting with 2 meters of road that links us to the outside world, if you want to call it. So we are literally taking one step at a time to try and get things done. And I think we've got to start off with a firm foundation, and that's what we're busy concentrating with currently.
Yeah. And in terms of raising the required budgets to do this kind of work, how are you undertaking that particular work?
So what we've done is we've basically channeled through the WhatsApp groups that we have and all the networks that we have within the community. And we've requested any type of donation to come through, and that would be used towards building either the bridge in Limmercy or any other infrastructure that needs to be built. We also have the support of Gift of the Givers, who has kindly agreed to store these funds and have accountability. So the community is basically sitting in a situation where people would be accountable. It's not just something that goes into someone's bank account. There's going to be accountability and transparency with the whole process.
Yeah. Marcus, your story in Shallcross, widely reported, I suppose, in the media as well. I see even the municipality saying they are aware of the initiative and they were, I suppose, going through the processes of also ensuring that the engineering work and everything else was in order. But just take us back a little bit. Did you, as a community, have specific restoration expectations, having listened to the announcement from the authorities that were particularly not met or maybe partially met?
I don't think they were even partially met. From the time of the floods and about 2 weeks after the floods, no disaster management team actually came to our area to even assist or to assess as to exactly what had happened. So it started off with the residents of Shallcross basically hiring private TLDs to clean up the roads and to make the roads possible. And that's where the idea for the bridge came in. So basically we were left to our own devices. We were left basically on our own. And we were, like Nazir says, a community in isolation, and we decided to roll up our sleeves and get stuck into the work itself.
And is there a sense now, I mean, having brought this particular matter to the fore, that there is enough of a particular investment in the recovery plan, particularly of your area? Are we particularly, when I'm saying are we, I'm saying as the South African government, particularly invested in that recovery plan? And are you seeing actions that are equal to that degree of commitment?
Not really. There's still current issues in the area with sewers being washed away 34 days down the line, and nothing has been done. We've been called out to assist with that as well. The riverbed itself, from where the major flooding came through, is also left unattended. Streets haven't been repaired. Potholes have been unattended. Displaced persons in our community hall are still there down the line, and the community is still taking care of them. So as far as the input from the government or the investment from the government from a point of view of political will, if I may say that, is partial or in some instances non-existent.
Yeah. And are you included then, do you feel, in the talks? I mean, there is an ad hoc committee, there are talks now from Treasury that there'll need to be reprioritization of certain funding coming from particular departments and so on and so forth. Do you feel that the community is, in a way, included in the planning of the recovery of particular areas in eThekwini?
Not necessarily. Perhaps some of the areas, I would say, from reading the news and listening to talk on different group chats. However, in our area in particular, and I'm talking about surrounding areas, including Chatsworth as well, it's the onus has been taken upon activists and humanitarians to write to the mayor, to write to the speaker's offices, to write to necessary political parties and their federal caucuses, to ask them exactly what has been transpired. Because at the same time, whilst the fact that government itself, or national government or local government, is dragging their heels, our representatives at the base level of our political situation, our councillors, are also found wanting in many, many instances.
Yeah. How complex is this process that you had to undertake of building a bridge, particularly this very important infrastructure that really linked you, as it is said, to the rest of the world, having felt so isolated when that infrastructure collapsed? How complex was it in terms of the technicalities, the engineering work, and the kind of input that you had to make here?
I think that when it comes to communities taking onus upon themselves or taking the communities back, what we came from a point of view where two gentlemen, but then one the name of Qadir Ghulam and the other Vernon Kiston, approached me and a few others asking to meet at the bridge. We were not aware of what was transpired. And one of the gentlemen, Qadir Ghulam himself, just had a very crude drawing on his cell phone, and he showed it to me. And he says, we're going to repair this bridge. And says, can you make it happen? So I said, the first thing we have to do is formalize the entire process. So we got in touch with our ward councillor to ask him to reach out to eThekwini itself. But in the interim, whilst we were waiting for that, we hired the services of private geotechnical and bridge engineers to give us their input pro bono. And once that, we both met together, and the meeting was formalized between the council, ourselves, and a few of what we now refer to as the Pompeni Bridge Executive Committee. We realized that what we were talking about from the input from our engineers and the engineers from council itself, that we were on the same page and it was doable, very much doable.
All right, we'll come back a little bit more and find out what the work now of that committee has become. But Nazir, let's come back to you. I mean, to what degree is the community of Tongaat particularly dependent on the assistance from the authorities for this particular project to be a success? And do you see that there could be possible challenges in achieving this if that assistance doesn't come through?
I think eThekwini municipality needs to provide all the assistance we can get. From the time, from machinery to equipment to manpower, etc. And this is where we've realized that there are challenges that's being faced by the municipality, being faced by the provincial government, especially during floods, and there's a lot that needs to be done. And that is why we as residents, we've taken it upon ourselves to get in touch with the
Okay, we seem to have a challenge there with that connection to Nazir. Nazir, we'll try and get you back on a better connection there so we can hear that story. But let me come back to you, Marcus, then. Do you think there are issues, Marcus, that can make certain aspects of the broader recovery plan that is envisaged by the government unachievable?
Not necessarily so. I believe that where there's a will, there's a way, and the political will needs to come from central government and other officials. Get in touch with our council.
I beg your pardon, Marcus. Yeah, keep going.
We're actually looking for leadership, and for some reason or the other, it seems to be lacking at the stage. And when you have an employee of eThekwini put her cell phone off at the height of the floods because she didn't receive a cell phone allowance, so this is coming from people from inside who wish to remain anonymous, then you can understand what the actual mechanism of government is. And we're not painting the entire government structure with the same brush, not at all. However, we do know that government at this stage and in the past is absolutely dysfunctional. And we go back to the looting of the July 12th last year, where the communities were left to take care of themselves and protect their own residences, their homes, their lives, and their businesses. Yeah. So what difference will the flood make when we were left virtually hanging in the balance?
Yeah. Nazir, let's come back to you. So you're saying as you're embarking on the project, you've now realized that there are gaps in terms of government capacity to assist you in delivering on the plan. What are those gaps that you've identified?
Absolutely. There's major gaps in the area. So basically some of the gaps that we found was in terms of manpower. Some of the gaps that we found was in terms of equipment. And this is where our community is now stepping in and saying, listen, we've got some X equipment and we can now assist you. So those are some of the major gaps.
Yeah, and how are you coping right now, especially with the rains that came again this weekend, and how that has disrupted the work that you're doing?
So some of the stuff that was done, some of the work that was halfway through is basically washed away. And it's basically back to the slate and back to start rebuilding from square one. Some of the stuff that was built has now worsened off. So there's a lot of work that needs to be carried out. For example, Jandazana Road, which was basically a 2-meter gap, has now basically caused the entire road to have collapsed. Yet, if that was repaired originally after the first floods and kind of reinforced, we wouldn't have been sitting in a situation where almost 10,000 people are now stuck out of the area.
Yeah. Let's take a break. When we come back, the strategic role that they believe independent activists and communities will play, particularly in this recovery process. And let's hear your views as well tonight on Twitter at Newzroom405 or otherwise on 072-110-5584. Are there particular things or issues that you believe can make certain aspects of this recovery plan unachievable? We'll hear your views in a moment. Stay with us. Back with you tonight here on In Focus. Community leaders in Tongaat as well as Shallcross joining us in conversation, celebrating in a sense the spirit of community, but also outlining and articulating some of the gaps that we certainly would need to address if we want to deliver on the recovery plan as outlined. The government saying there will be relief, there will be stabilization, there will be recovery. Marcus, where would you say we are as far as that work is concerned? Member of the ad hoc committee, but also member of the IFP in Parliament and Scope are saying that work is occurring slowly, which means that the impact of the disaster continues. Where are we in that three-phase of relief, stabilization, as well as recovery in your particular area?
I think we basically into the first phase in terms of disaster management now coming to the fore and inspecting the damaged areas or infrastructure itself. And it's only been now to start assessing and to put a plan of action together and issuing what they refer to as reference numbers or, yes, to put into the picture, sewers that went down 34 days ago, or 35, no, sorry, now it's 38 days ago, are still not being repaid because a site visit is done by a member of the water and sanitation. Somebody senior comes out, has a look at it. Engineers come out and have a look at it. But no feedback is given. So I would say we're still in the first phase or the teething part of this entire operation with government, local government.
Yeah, and why do you think it's occurring so slowly? I mean, what is your pretty much assessment? Because you were able to do this in 5 days, as you put it. Now it's 34, 38 days, maybe even more. That this has occurred, but the work on the sewage, for example, has not yet begun. Why is this occurring so slowly?
There's a particular word they use when 9/11 occurred, where George W. Bush, president, was sitting and reading to those kids in a particular school. And the words the Americans come up with was discombobulated. And I think our government was basically caught with cold feet. In other words, they had no idea as to what to do. In my opinion, one senior minister should have been appointed to take care of the entire infrastructure damage in KZN and to run with it. In other words, he ought to have been given special powers, as in like a field marshal in times of war, or a czar in times of America's drug war against the Mexican cartel. That kind of leadership, once one gentleman or minister identified, he comes down and he runs with the whole thing. So in other words, you call in all the national resources, equipment, funding, whatever the case might be, and you pour it into KwaZulu-Natal, because KwaZulu-Natal was hit the hardest, not for the first time, the looting and now the floods. And so I believe that the disaster management plan that was in place failed us dismally. Lack of leadership also failed us dismally. But we can only learn from here and go forward. And the fact that communities now, like Nazir and them, are carrying out theirs. We also got calls to repair the bridge in La Mercy by a gentleman from the Residents Association about a month. We were called out to look at the Yellowwood Park Bridge because people said, can you help us? Can you give us ideas? Can you give us input? Because they themselves, nothing was done, no assessment was done. They weren't given priority in terms of what exactly had happened. It was a human tragedy, a human catastrophe. And for some reason or the other, it took almost like a snail's pace a reaction from local government and national government itself.
Yeah. And what would you say then is the strategic role that independent activists could play here in this recovery to fast-track matters? I know there have been, for example, opinion pieces that have been written to say, well, forget government, let the communities come together and do this. They've got much better plans and they could deliver this much better. In fact, dealing with also issues around corruption and so on and so forth.
It's going to become the new normal in South Africa. I read an article somewhere, it doesn't come to mind exactly where, that we are now a failed state. According to certain reports and certain news reports, eThekwini is on a minus a few million rand short of becoming bankrupt. So activists themselves are now going to take over and run with it. And most of them, and funny enough, are remaining apolitical in the entire thing. No political party claiming responsibility or claiming accreditation, but the basic activists at grassroots level are now taking over and they're going to run with it, and this is going to become the new normal. And the residents and community members are rallying around them because they know that this is the best way forward and the only way forward currently.
Yeah. Nazir, how do we turn plans into action so that we just don't keep on saying, well, there are recovery plans or relief plans in place, yet people on the ground, like in Tongaat, are not feeling that, particular when it comes to the restoration of that La Mercy bridge?
Yeah, I think basically the councillors and officials at B need to start working with the people on the ground. It's pointless sitting in your offices and sitting around a boardroom table and putting plans. Those plans need to come down to grassroots level, and the people at grassroots level basically know best as to what needs to be done in their communities. Unfortunately, we don't see our councillors as active as they should be, and I think that's one of the key issues that we have. And that is the key link. They are the key link between the people on the ground and the officials at B.
Yeah. The big story here, Nazir, as well, more than, of course, the challenges that are around the disaster recovery procedures and processes, is the human spirit and the community spirit to work together, the resilience of the people of KwaZulu-Natal. Just reflect on that. What is your thinking around that, and how we could harness that same kind of spirit and that mentality to fix a lot of other issues that are plaguing South Africa economically and otherwise?
Yeah, I think, when you refer to Ubuntu, we are seeing it now. We are seeing the people on the ground rallying together. We're seeing them gelling irrespective of race, color, or creed. People are rallying because they know there's no way we can rely on our state. And the only thing we can get things done is literally doing it ourselves. If we didn't start this Janazana Road project and start pushing and getting things off the ground, and as Marcus said, if they didn't rally around and start fixing the bridge, I think people would still be sitting in isolation and basically locked out from the rest of the world. So when we talk about getting communities rallied and getting people around, it's happening right now on the ground. And this is what's going to bring us back as a country, is when the community starts to stand together, work together, and we will start seeing success in our country.
Yeah. And Marcus, you've put together a committee. It was initially meant to build one bridge, but it looks like you're now a committee that's looking at other areas. So what are the next projects that you're looking to tackle?
We're currently still at the same bridge site. There's a whole lot of rehabilitation and gentrification work that needs doing. I just come about 20 minutes ago from an executive meeting of the River Team Project, executive, and there's rehabilitation that needs to take place. So we need to plant more trees, make sure that the rivers flow in the right way, fill in sand, soil, and rocks and stones where we excavated, and generally make the place as to where it was prior to the flood. So there's quite a lot of work to be done within the next 3 to 6 months, and we're currently working on a plan to do that. So our work hasn't ended. It's only just begun. We have other issues to deal with in our community, like I said, sewer, potholes, issues. We're going forward full tilt, like Nazir said, Ubuntu. People need a sense of identity and belonging, and when few of us can do that, and then the best thing we can do is create and uphold that indomitable human spirit.
Yeah. Gentlemen, we appreciate your time and for coming on tonight here on In Focus, and continue with the work that you're doing. And the hope is that the authorities, as they say, they are watching and listening at these initiatives. They will come on board and certainly do what they are meant to be doing in as far as this recovery plan is concerned. But we thank you very much for coming on this evening.
Thank you very much.
All right, that is community leaders there in Shallcross as well as Tongaat, Marcus Richards, as well as Nazir Sadack with us tonight here on In Focus.